I'm Jasmine Moradi, and you're listening to the Queens of Tech podcast, a podcast series about raising the voice of workplace champions. 60 plus questions in around 30 to 40 minutes with women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender influencers about their journey into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I started the Queens of Tech podcast initiative in May 2022 because I would like to retain more women, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders in the tech industry. Talent is out there, but our work environment needs to improve for all to feel safer, stay authentic, and to be valued for our contributions. My vision is to raise the workplace ecosystem for all in tech by killing the imposter syndrome, stopping bad behavior, and increasing equity opportunities. Each podcast talk is built around 60 plus questions regarding upbringing, education, career path, DIB, and future advice. My mission is to bridge the gap between schools and workplaces by getting into the heart of my guest's personal life and career journey to inspire other girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders to unleash their full potential to reach top leadership roles in the tech industry. My goal is to raise the voices of tech champions around the world and together with companies, investors, and politicians, raise the challenges and opportunities around equity, inclusive, diversity, and belonging in our workplaces. Enough is enough. I would like to enforce companies to build a sustainable, inclusive culture to retain diverse talent so we keep the workforce power equity to continue building future diverse and inclusive products. Representation matters. Your voice matters. In this episode, I'm very excited to welcome my guest, tech queen Nichole Austion, an engineer, a woman of color in STEM, and the president of public affairs at the national nonprofit, the National Math and Science Initiative, NMSI. Hi, Nichole.
Hi, Jasmine. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm very happy to have you joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to have our conversation.
Well, it's an honor. I'm excited to get to know you. So let us dive into your journey into STEM. Hope you're ready for the Queens of Tech 60 plus questions.
Let's go.
Let's warm up with a few fun facts about you. How would you describe your personality in 3 hashtags?
Warm, funny, energetic.
How would you summarize your life in 3 sentences?
Full of family fun, full of adventure, full of love.
What kind of music stimulates and motivates you the most?
Well, this is a great one and also a little bit of a sad one. So I loved Frankie Beverly and Maze, and I just found out that Frankie Beverly passed away. So I love classic R&B. I love also jazz, both classic jazz and modern jazz. And I get into a little bit of hip hop every now and again. I love Davido, who is a Nigerian rapper. So that's a little bit outside of my generation, but I do like his music as well.
What's your personal motto?
Live life to the fullest. I am all about making sure that we are having adventures and fun and enjoying life, all of the good positive things that life has to offer. Of course, making sure that we're also serving people as we go about doing the things in our lives, but making sure that my family and I have as many experiences and fun and see as much of the world as we can possibly see.
What is your favorite book?
I have lots of favorite books, but a book that I just finished is called Erasure, and it's by Percival Everett. And if you've seen the movie American Fiction, it is the book that is based on that movie, and you have to read the book. The book is phenomenal. The movie is phenomenal. Love Jeffrey Wright, who stars in that movie, but the book puts the full novel in a novel. And so that's one of my favorite books.
What is your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast is Queen of Tech. I have to be honest. I'm not much of a podcast listener. My husband does a little bit more podcast listening, but I do enjoy the STEM podcasts and the ones that focus on women in STEM, like Queens of Tech.
Well, you will be surprised. I do produce podcasts, but I don't listen to them myself because I need the silence in my ears.
Right, right. I can
And I
definitely
prefer
appreciate.
reading, actually.
Me too.
Mac or PC?
I'm gonna say PC only because I was involved in one of the launches of one of the early PCs. So I have to say PC.
Say something interesting about you that most people don't know.
Can bake from scratch. So I used to bake muffins and cakes from scratch. I'm talking flour, yeast.
And what is your hidden talent?
I'd like to organize things. I haven't had a lot of time to do that, but I do like to organize things. When my mother was alive, one of her favorite things for me to do was to organize her closet, and I would put her shoes in little plastic bins and label them.
And if you were to write a book about your life, what would the title be?
Oh, probably it would include live life to the fullest, an adventure on earth with lots of love and experiences.
Beautiful. It's a great start, Nichole. Now, let us dig deeper. Our childhood has a profound effect on our adulthood. Our early experiences shape our belief about ourselves, others, and the world. Now, I want to discover your childhood. Where did you grow up, and how did it shape your early experiences?
I grew up in a city called Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it's a small Midwestern city. It has about 250,000 people. And we lived in a pretty middle class neighborhood. I was able to walk to elementary school and middle school, had to ride to high school. But it was a pretty stable environment. My parents were both educated people. My mother had a master's degree, and she had her bachelor's degree in early childhood education, and she was a speech pathologist as well. So they really emphasized the importance of education in our home and also wanted to expose us to as many things as they could in our community and our broader country. So I would say sort of their Midwestern values, hard work, certainly belief. We had a strong faith in our family, education that really shaped our early childhood. My brother and I have a younger brother, and also the belief that we really were created to do anything that we positive that we put our minds to. So that was really a great emphasis in our upbringing. And it really helped me to understand that I could go out with a great education and conquer the world if I wanted to.
So, based on that beautiful foundation, what was your dream job when you were a child?
I don't know that I had a dream job as a child. When I went to college originally, I wanted to be in the Foreign Service. So I started my college career at Georgetown University, and I was in the School of Foreign Service, and I wanted to be in politics and in the government in some capacity. And that quickly pivoted to engineering, which is a weird pivot, I think, but it did pivot to engineering.
And what was your favorite subject in school?
I had a great teacher in the 12th grade, Mr. Pabst, who taught English. And the really wonderful thing about his class was it was a flipped classroom. So each of the students had an opportunity to take a text and then teach it to the class. Loved that class. Mr. Pabst was also the head of the speech club, and I was a member of the speech team. And I also had a little bit of crush on him. So I think that class was probably my favorite in high school, but I enjoyed all of the STEM subjects. And I actually had a female biology teacher, Mrs. Campschmidt. So that was really fun.
Having a crush on a teacher is always a great excuse of loving the subject. So, what was your least favorite subject?
My least favorite subject, and it probably wasn't as much the subject as it was the teacher, was social studies. Unfortunately, we had a teacher who used a racial slur in the classroom, and that made it a little difficult for the 3 Black students who were in that classroom. So that was probably my least favorite subject, but not necessarily the subject area, but because the teacher had some issues with our race.
And what is your earliest memory of technology and the arrival of the internet?
So, my earliest memory of the arrival of the internet is in college. I went to Howard University and we had a computer lab. Of course, I was in computer systems engineering. That's what my degree is in. And we were actually on the internet, but it was green screen. I'm probably dating myself, but that's my earliest memory. of programming things and seeing things on the internet. And it was this burgeoning little, thing, World Wide Web is what we called it.
Then, which were the three first technology gadgets you owned yourself, and how did they influence your interest in tech going forward?
I never had a BlackBerry, but I had a Nokia phone. I definitely had an iPad, and then an iPhone. And I was fascinated by growing up really with PCs, right? And growing up in the whole Microsoft world. Really, really fascinated by my iPad and the ease of which you could navigate those devices very intuitively. So I am now a really solid Apple user, except for my computer, but every other device.
And during that period of time and when you were growing up, who was your female role model and what about her inspired you?
My mother was my female role model. My mother was a pretty fierce individual. She had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and of course, she's a Black woman who grew up in the 60s. And she had her own business at one time called Professional Diagnostics, where she went around the northern part of the state of Indiana and did diagnostic testing for students in schools. And then she also taught at our vice president of student development at our local college. And then she ascended to be vice president of workforce development for our Chamber of Commerce. All the while taking care of two kids. Of course, my dad was there as well. But she was a super fierce woman. She would come in back in the days when you had to wear pantyhose and suits to work, and she would start dinner in her pantyhose and heels. And I just remember that. She would start dinner and then she would go off, change her clothes, and come back. But she was a pretty fierce individual, very, very active in the community, lots of community awards. So she was my number one role model.
Well, thank you for keeping her memory alive. I can see her in front of me, and she seemed to be such a role model. That's amazing. And you did tell us a little bit of your foundation growing up. How do you think then where you grew up and the school you went to and the generation you come from influence your education and career choice?
I'm a Gen Xer, and we are definitely about the hard work. We had kind of a rah-rah sense about us, when we came out of high school. Like, we really did have a very positive outlook on what we could achieve in the future. And that was really proliferated through most of my educational experiences. Other than the one teacher that we talked about, I really did not face a situation where I was ever told I couldn't do something. And so that is really, I won't say foreign to me. I think there were subtle ways in which people might have told me that I couldn't do something, but not overt ways. And I always had a sense that I could conquer anything. If anybody, of course, listening to the podcast, Queens of Tech, you know that if you're an engineering student, you have to conquer a lot of math. So I just went ahead and conquered the math. I did not have a sense that I couldn't achieve my goals. And that really is attributed, of course, to my parents and the way that they raised me, but also to the teachers and people who surrounded me. I was able to go to a program when I was in high school called Top 5 Sophomores Program, and that was put on by Purdue University. And we went down to Purdue University. We interacted with researchers in labs who were discovering all kinds of new things. We got a chance to see all the engineering buildings. And I was one of 10 sophomore students, and I wasn't the only female who got a chance to see that. So it really did play a vital role in how I saw myself. And then, of course, going to Howard University, which was historically Black college and university, and my professors, whether they were white, Black, Latino, all believed in the group of students who was in that university, and they really helped us to achieve our academic goals.
I love that. Very powerful. So let us now dig into your career. But before that, I'm going to read two quotes. First one, how does the universe expect me to choose a career path at 16? I can't even choose what I want for dinner. Second, Abraham Lincoln said, I quote, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So, Nichole, I want to know the choices behind your career path. You have been mentioning it a couple of times, but again, where and what did you study at university?
I originally went to Georgetown University, and I started on the path of political science or foreign service. I was in the School of Foreign Service, and that was based on experiences I had in high school. I went to a program called Girls State. I was a representative from my county. At Girls State, it's a mock government summer experience for girls, and they have one for boys as well. And I ran for Congress. I became Speaker of the House in that particular program. And that spurred me to want to pursue politics. But I got to Georgetown University and my Indiana education didn't quite cut it. And so I switched over to Howard University, where I kind of fell back into my love of the sciences. And I'd always been strong in the sciences and math in high school. And so I pivoted to that particular area, and my career started off really well as a systems engineer for IBM. But I got pulled into a launch for a PC product that they were launching all across the country in Indiana, and I was asked to work with the marketing team. And that really piqued my interest. Juxtaposition of art and science within math was really, really interesting to me. So I went to graduate school, learned more about marketing, and I learned that I could combine my interest in marketing with my love of technology. And I spent 20 years in marketing technology. So I worked for all kinds of firms who had technology products, and I was very adept at taking the features of the product and translating them into business benefits. So that was my early career. And once I stopped working in for profit organizations, I quickly pivoted to education, where I realized there were many, many gaps in terms of women, people of color having a presence, being educated and well educated, and then having a presence in STEM. And so now that has become my passion and my work. And the interesting thing about what I do now is it is a blend of both marketing, technology, and government relations, because I am also in charge of government relations, where I talk to policymakers about how they can have better policies around STEM education for women and girls and people of color in their states and across our nation.
Wow, isn't it beautiful when everything in your past and your interests come together in one role going forward? So, what does NIMC do?
NMSI is a STEM solution provider. And what we do is we provide professional development education for STEM teachers, science, technology, engineering, and math teachers all across this nation in grades 3 through 12. We bring them together. We teach them content, which is the subject, and pedagogy, which is how to teach the subject in a way that resonates with students. We also provide them with resources and a community. Most people don't understand that the classroom can be a really lonely place, right? You're standing in front of 30 plus students sometimes, and you don't often have a partner, especially in public education. So, what we provide for those teachers is a really solid foundation in the content that they're teaching and how to teach it so that they can have that confidence in what they actually have to do in getting the knowledge in, and then they also have freedom to do the other things that they have to do in the class, like classroom management. That's a big deal. Getting 30 students, especially when you're talking about middle school and high school, to sit down and pay attention and put your phones away takes a lot of energy. And if you've got that content and pedagogy in you in a way that is an evidence based program, you can then be more effective as a teacher.
Yeah, I really respect teachers. And I never wanted to become a teacher because of how my class were treating teachers and it was so respectful and it made their job much more harder, but the work they do is beautiful. So what is your title and what is your main responsibilities?
My title is Vice President of Public Affairs, and my responsibilities are in the public relations, government relations, and marketing areas for the organization. In terms of public relations, my team makes sure that our brand is represented well, is represented according to our mission, which is to provide quality STEM education to teachers in service of students all across the nation, especially students furthest from opportunity. We also delve into the government relations realm, where we talk to both national education leaders as well as state education leaders about policies that promote equitable STEM education across the United States. And then, of course, marketing. We do have programs and services that we market to districts and to states. And of course, we want to promote those products out in the proper channels. So, those are the responsibilities of my team.
How did you get the role?
I started at the National Math and Science Initiative as a director of marketing. I was brought in for my business to business expertise. I quickly ascended to senior director and then to vice president of public affairs. So within 3 years of being at the organization, I was promoted up to vice president.
What does a typical workday or work week look like for you?
There's lots of meetings in the VP role for anybody who was interested in having that role. So I meet with my team regularly. I have 4 direct reports currently. And so we have check-ins. I also meet with our leadership team, and that team is, of course, responsible for managing the entire organization. So there's a lot of cross-functional discussions on how we make our organization that people want to work for and also want to continue to stay within the organization. And of course, we want to make sure that it's stable and relevant and getting the impact that we want to have. And that's pretty much a typical workday. It's a lot of meetings, a lot of coordination, but it's all fun and it's all for a good, impactful cause.
I love the quote, Nichole, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. So a lot of meetings, but what is it that you love the most about your role?
What I love about my role the most is really about data-driven information. So I love to look at how our website traffic is growing or how our social followers are growing, both within a number, but also more importantly within the engagement. So I like looking across our platforms and across the tactics that we're doing and seeing how we are progressing our marketing program and our public relations program. I like working with partners that help us see the impressions that we're making. How are our press releases landing? Are we getting our message out to the stakeholders who need to know about our program and who are going to purchase our program? So I really love looking at the data that talks about the impact of the particular tactics and strategies that we are implementing within public affairs.
What would you say has been the best experience you've had so far? Any examples you can share with us?
I had the opportunity last year to work with one of our board members and put on a fabulous event in Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, where we had a festival called From STEM to the Stars. And we had partnership with Blue Origin. They brought the Blue Origin New Shepard reusable capsule to the island, and people were able to tour that capsule. We had a main tent where we hosted 3 panels, including an education panel, and we also had a Blue Origin panel. And our premier panel featured 6 African American pioneering astronauts. And that was a fabulous experience. So we had Major General Charlie Bolden, Joan Higginbotham, Leland Melvin, Dr. Robert Satcher, Victor Glover, who is a current astronaut who's scheduled to go to the moon, and our sponsor and host was Dr. Bernard Harris, who is the first African American astronaut to walk in space.
So jealous. So cool. I would have asked so many questions. Did we land on the moon or not?
They are fabulous, fabulous, wonderful people. And if you ever get to meet any astronauts, they're just the most gracious, wonderful people. They're just great.
Wow. And what is the biggest challenge you've encountered so far? And how did you end up tackling it?
The biggest challenge that I've encountered so far is really getting people to understand what the function of my team is. So we're working on that and people are coming around to it. It's an organization that really didn't have to do a lot of marketing, didn't have to do a lot of public relations just because of the way that they were originally organized and funded. So really just trying to get the organization to understand the benefit, the strategic value of the organization has been a little bit of a challenge, but it's never a sense of pushing back. It's just more knowledge that they want to have around how to do these types of things. If you're coming from for profit to nonprofit, that's not uncommon, but overall, a fabulous experience.
Now you get a chance to let the listeners know and your colleagues, what do you wish everybody understood about your role?
That it's strategic, that it is the external voice of the organization, and that it's not always just my team's responsibility. We all have a responsibility. Whether you're in for profit or a nonprofit, you are in public relations and marketing for your firm. From your LinkedIn profile to the way in which you describe what you do, to the way in which you talk about the benefit of your organization on whatever constituency you have or the world, Everybody involved in the organization is in marketing and public relations, and that's what everybody needs to understand.
And what is the one common myth about your professional field that you want to disapprove?
That it's just about pretty slides and pretty collateral. No, there's analytics there. We are STEM as well. There's analytics, there's technology, there are fields of study. It's not easy, and there's a lot of competition. So you have to know your buyer personas, as we call them, really well, or your target audience really well. And you have to understand the things that they're facing and they're challenged with so that you can address them with your products or programs.
What do you love about working in the tech industry?
I love the fact that with the right technology, you can really change lives. Let's talk about the COVID vaccine. That's technology, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about healthcare in general. There's so much technology now, and it's so important for people to be able to utilize things like telemedicine, to be able to get the right prescriptions. Look at all the benefits that we're going to have when we have ethical policies in place, but also as we use AI, it's a tool, but we have to use these things for good. So I love the tech industry's ability not only to change our lives with the products, but also to change people's financial trajectory if they go into technology. And that's the thing that I really am passionate about is making sure that education is equitable in STEM so that more people can rise by having tech jobs that financially support and lift their families.
Yeah, beautiful. Just also want to tell the listeners that it's also important that the tech design is inclusive so everybody can benefit from it.
100%. And that is really a part of my passion. There have been numerous studies done that show that diverse teams get better results financially and in terms of projects that they take on than non diverse teams. And we have got to understand that and start including everyone on the planet in this problem solving that we have and the ability to do that with STEM.
Yeah, and also like all the data in AI and for example, especially health apps needs to include different kind of cultures and not always been meant to design them because they don't know the challenges we are going through. So we need to be included. So again, everybody gets the help that they need. So it's not just a help app that is for humans, but actually depending on one situation and experience and culture, for example.
Absolutely. Delving into the specific areas where different genders, different ethnicities, different places on the planet, right, are
Age.
dealing with age, right, are dealing with different issues. We have to include everybody in this quest to make technology benefit the world.
Oprah Winfrey said, I quote, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is not a stepping stone to greatness. So, Nicole, what has by far been your biggest achievement in your career?
Wow, that is a great question, Jasmine. The biggest achievement in my career has probably been this pivot to nonprofit and pivot to education. It's really taking everything that I learned and experienced and built in the for profit world and really turning it into an organization that wants to do more good in the education realm. So I've really enjoyed it may be a small thing, but being able to run the marketing organization and show people images of Black teachers working with students, female teachers working with a diverse group of students, really showing those images in our brand library has been amazing to me. To be able to work with organizations like the Lighthill Foundation and to showcase their if then ambassadors and to work with teams that are building out workbooks and discussion guides around those fabulous STEM ambassadors. That is crazy and wonderful to work with 3M on a project around their documentary called Not the Science Type and really being able to have discussion guides that we give out to teachers so that they can talk to women about being in STEM, hosting webinars with astronaut Joan Higginbotham, and with Dr. Sierra Silvas to talk to girls about their path in STEM. Those have been some of the most rewarding things that I have done in this role. So I would say making the pivot to nonprofit and then being able to be in this space with a national organization like the National Math and Science Initiative and really help women and girls understand that they can really succeed in STEM.
I'm so excited. I want to join.
Come on over.
What is the biggest factor that has helped you become successful? What are your success habits knowing that you're successful or not?
Well, I do have some pretty strong standards for myself. I have a pretty wicked inner critic too, but I have some strong standards for myself. And I've always been blessed with some fantastic managers, both in the for profit and the nonprofit world, who have been patient with me, who have taught me, who have schooled me. So I think that, and of course, my foundation, with my parents, that great Midwestern upbringing, really talking about hard work, and then really not seeing setbacks as failures. It's only a failure when you stop. It's a setback if you continue to go. And I think that sort of value that was placed in me by my parents has really helped me to continue pursuing what I wanted to do in my career.
So, Nichole, how do you measure your performance at work?
We are really very data driven in our team. So we do take a look at quarterly analytics to ensure that our channels are growing. We also are going to embark upon a lead generation and lead scoring mechanism, which will be coming a little later because we're just starting with our new product marketing manager. But we do want to make sure that we have the appropriate reach, we get the appropriate impressions. We are working with one of our partners on ensuring that we have earned media, which is probably one of my favorite areas that we work on. So those are the types of things that we kind of look at. We do have metrics around the number of visitors that we want to have to our website. We have metrics around how we want to see our audiences grow and engage with us. We also participate in Google Ad searches. We have the Google Ad grant. For those of you who are nonprofit, go get that Google Ad grant. We take a look at how those ads are performing. And of course, we look at conversions, both from our donation sites as well as our free resources and those that click the link that want to know more about NMSI and engage with us. So lots of metrics, lots of ways that we look at success. But one of the main ways that our organization looks at success is how the teachers are responding to our training. And we constantly get feedback from them in the way of very evidence-based surveys that they take around everything from communications to the coaches that give them the training. And we're very pleased to have wonderful results from our teachers who engage with us on a yearly basis.
And we're talking a lot about success, which is great, but with success comes failures, or as you were mentioning, step backs. What is your biggest failure, step back in your career, and what did you learn from it?
One of my biggest setbacks in my career was when I was laid off from a cybersecurity firm in 2018. And it was really challenging. I'm sure it's for those in your audience who are a little bit older. Once you get to a certain point in tech, you may be aging out. And I found myself aging out. And what I learned from that is that even though those in the tech world weren't necessarily interested in what I had to offer anymore, that other industries were, and that I could take what I knew and start my own business. So I started doing some consulting. And that's where I first got engaged with a nonprofit that's no longer around, but it was called Lighthouse Academies. And it was a charter management organization. And I was a contractor and the de facto director of marketing. And then I made the pivot to the National Math and Science Initiative, and my skills and my experience were richly valued there. Of course, to the point where I am now the vice president of public affairs. So the advice I would give is don't think that you are not of value simply because one particular industry or one particular company doesn't see value in you doesn't mean that you're not valuable, right? The skills and experiences that you have are marketable. You will find those who find what you have to bring valuable to their organization. Just keep searching. It will come. Don't forget about the nonprofit sector and make sure that you keep your skills up and keep your self-esteem and self-value up because what you have to bring to the table is valuable.
Wow, I get goosebumps. So my advice to you, Nichole, is if you want to change, you can become a business coach because you can definitely manage that. I'll sign up. Of everything you said so far, what would you say is inspiring and motivate you the most in your role and career right now?
I have a fabulous supporter, and I'm not going to call this person a mentor, but I have a fabulous supporter who is pretty much good at everything, but not necessarily because it's natural talent, because it's grit, because it's tenacity, because it's perseverance, because it's self assurance. And that person is really showing me that I can do the things that I want to do as well. Maybe it's not going to be overnight. Maybe it's going to take me months. It may even take me years. But if I have a passion for it and I have a drive and I have a belief that I can do it, it's possible. And so my supporter is a great influence and great inspiration to me in this season of my life. And so that's kind of where I am. I encourage my supporter to finish a book. And I thought to myself, why am I encouraging him to finish a book when I could write a book? So I wrote my book, Miles and the Math Monsters, which is my children's book. So great inspiration from a really great supporter that I have, and just watching him conquer multiple industries and really getting inspiration from that.
Well, that's a great overlap because now let us jump into influence of mentors, role models, champions, and sponsors. For our listeners, role models can consciously or subconsciously be a powerful force in our lives. In addition, champions can stand up and advocate for us and open up the world of possibilities. Sponsors match emerging talent with leaders and influential employees who can help us move ahead in our careers. So now I know, Nichole, you do have a supporter. How important do you think it's to have a mentor, champion, or sponsor through one's career?
It is incredibly important. And I will admit that in my early career, I did not have that, nor did I really know the value of that. But it is critically important to have somebody that you can learn from, somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, somebody that you can commiserate with, can help steer you in the right direction and be a thought partner with you. And I'm fortunate that now I'm able to do that for others. So I do appreciate the value of that, even though I didn't have a lot of that in my career coming up. So I'm really happy and proud to be able to do that for others. But it is incredibly important to have a village and to have somebody who has achieved maybe not what you want to achieve, but who has achieved beyond you to help inspire you. And then to have somebody who can coach you and can see your best parts better than you can even see your best parts. And I've got both. So I think those are very vital pieces of your career path. So I encourage, those in the audience to find yourself a mentor and to try and see where your champion or supporter is. Listen to those little notes that come out that say your work is good from your CEO or from your vice president, and then approach those people. Ask them if they will be willing to be your supporter. But pay attention to that. Don't just brush it off. Pay attention to that because you're being noticed by people higher up for something that you're delivering. And you can utilize that as long as you continue to have your performance at a great standard.
Let us now move on to leadership. Adena Friedman, President and CEO of Nasdaq, said, I quote, empowering those around you to be heard and valued makes a difference between a leader who simply instructs and one who inspires. And Shirley Sandberg, ex-CEO of Facebook, said, I quote, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. So, Nichole, what does leadership mean to you?
Leadership to me means inspiring and empowering others. And I have very much enjoyed working with my team and understanding where their strengths are, where their goals are, and helping them to succeed in achieving their goals. So I really do believe in giving my team voice within the organization. I was given voice within the organization, allowing them to shine in their area of expertise, allowing them to experiment and succeed and fail, and really trying to create an environment where I'm listening to their voices, especially in the area of their expertise, to grow and make the organization better. I also have a great leadership team that allows for me to do some of those same things. And I have a president that I report to who is very open and supportive and championing me to the broader leadership team when I need that type of help.
So, what would you say distinguish a good leader from a bad leader?
A bad leader is a micromanager. You need to hire and trust the people that you've hired to do the job that they need to do. Don't micromanage folks. Provide guidance, provide feedback. But what I'm learning in my role as vice president is you're no longer the person who's executing things, but you're setting forth the vision, right? You're setting forth the vision and you have to trust your people to execute it. I will admit I'm working on that, but I do believe in making sure you can empower people to do the job that they know and you should know that they are able to do.
And who is your favorite female, non-binary, or transgender tech leader, and why?
Ona King speaks to me. I love Ona King. She's really DEIJ, but she works for Uber and she used to work for Snap. But I love her and the work that she's doing in DEIJ, both at Uber and what she did at Snap.
And how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I hope to describe myself as communicative. I hope that I'm setting a proper vision for my team, that I'm empowering them to do the job that they need to do, that I work collaboratively with them, and that I support them.
And as a leader, Nichole, what values do you prioritize the most?
Communication, collaboration, open and honest feedback.
And what leadership lessons have you learned that have shaped you into the leader you are today?
Discord is not bad. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to want to go in a different direction. But at the end of the day, you have to then yield to either what the majority says or what's best for the business. You also need to advocate for yourself and for your team. Make sure that you are making your team shine and that you're showing and showcasing how they're shining. And then as a leader, especially within an organization, you need to take a look across the entire organization. Utilize your skills and your expertise that you bring to the table to help make all departments and all areas of the business better.
What would you say are your 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses?
My 3 strengths: communication, collaboration, and humor. My weaknesses are probably my email inbox. So a little bit of organization on the email inbox. What is a weakness? I would say sometimes I'm a little too team oriented. I'm a little too fierce for my team sometimes. And what else? I don't know. I don't have a third one.
Now, Nichole, let us jump into the hottest topic in business today: workplace culture, unlocking the power of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So, what do diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you personally?
Personally, it means the ability for me to show up as my full human self at work, whether it is the way I wear my hair, whether it is the holidays I celebrate, whether it is parts of my racial and ethnic background. I want to be able to show up fully at work and not have that be a barrier and hindrance in the work that I do. I want to be able to express my full self in every meeting within, of course, the realms of business, but to be able to be a full human being, whether it's showing up as a mom of a teenage son or a wife or whomever I am, I want to be able to bring that to my work environment and lend that support to others who are in the same phase of life or in the same gender category as I am, or to help educate others, right? And I think everybody needs to do that. You need to feel comfortable. You don't need to feel like you have to have any part of you shy away from the environment in which you spend a lot of time at work.
More than spending time with their families, what do you consider being 3 to 5 signs of good company culture if you were to join a new company tomorrow?
Psychological safety, open and honest and transparent communication, and a strong culture around diversity, equity, inclusion, and what we call justice and belonging.
And as a colored Black woman, what would you say has been the most significant political and or cultural barrier in your career, and how have you overcome these challenges?
One of the most challenging barriers was in the tech world. And really trying to ascend from the manager level to the director level and really managing people. I spent 14 years at one particular company. There were a couple of times when I applied for higher positions, and almost every time it was given to a male colleague. So I think overcoming that was probably one of the biggest challenges in my career was getting to be seen as a credible business person who could tackle a director level position. And also the way of overcoming is changing the sector that I work in, where I was never seen as I'm not a credible leader, a credible person to run an organization. I was given proper training, I was given proper support, and I have been welcomed and promoted based upon the work that I've done. Culture, going to the place with the right culture.
And why do you think it's important for more women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender to join the tech industry today?
We've talked about that a little bit, but we have to make sure that we're addressing with any type of technology that we are developing or enhancing. We have to address the challenges across genders and across all different types of people. And in order to do that, we have to have those people involved, right? Because you're not going to understand some of the unique challenges that women face in the world if you don't have women on your research teams, if you don't have women on your design teams, if you don't have women on your implementation teams. You need to make sure that you are not only gleaning the best ideas across genders, ethnicities, races. You have to make sure that you're including those people in the decision making and in the implementation of these technologies because we want things to be applicable and usable and beneficial for the planet. And that includes all kinds of people.
And how do you discuss the IB challenges such as salary gaps, promotion, maternity leave, etc., with your colleagues, peers, and community?
Once again, I'm going to go back to culture. So, National Math and Science Initiative is a fabulous organization in terms of DEIJ. We have a DEIJ council. We have a fabulous talent team that is really about equitable pay. So, they do assessments every year to ensure that the pay is equitable across the organization. We also have a lot of affinity groups that really address any sort of identity that employees have across the organization. So I'm in a strong situation and strong culture where those things are taken very seriously across our organization and are implemented within our organization.
There are many public and internal discussions about the barriers women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals face from reaching high position or receiving funding in the tech industry. How have these issues affected you, and what is your advice on overcoming these roadblocks?
In terms of overcoming roadblocks in hiring and promoting, I know within the nonprofit sector, we are facing a problem around Black women leaders, and those leaders really facing both micro and macro aggressions in their leadership roles. There are many people who are trying to address that. Hopefully, the answer is not for Black women leaders to leave the sector. I'm hoping we can come to some agreement that we need to change some of these cultures and understand better the strength and power of Black women in those cultures. As far as business is concerned, we need to first of all get the knowledge, make sure that we are sharing the knowledge with each other around building your business, financing your business, expanding your business. I would encourage women, don't shy away from having male mentors. Find yourself a male feminist mentor. They're out there who will help you understand the landscape, help you understand how to grow your business through capital, understand how to market your business. And then, of course, lean upon your female tribe and your female groups. Groups like Chief here in the United States, other local groups. I'm a part of a mastermind group called She Speaks Vision. It's a group of fabulous executive and business owner women, and we have a wealth of information. There's only four of us. If they had a wealth of information about how to expand our businesses or about how to ascend within our organization. So find groups like that are both female based, identity based, but also don't be afraid to go to male colleagues who have succeeded. Find yourself a friendly male who is willing to share that information.
You did mention something important about Black women, but women generally considering leaving the tech industry. Tech companies do invest heavily in marketing, attracting women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals, but they're struggling to retain them. Hint, hint, the culture. An article showed that women are leaving the tech industry. So, based on what you said before, what is your best advice or strategies for how companies can work to build a stronger corporate culture that engages DIB?
First of all, I'm going to say to women who are leaving the tech industry, form your own company. You've got the strength, you've got the power, you've had the intelligence to do so. So don't shy away from that, first of all. Second of all, to tech companies who want to retain, you've got to change your culture. You've got to get DEIJ or DEIB experts in the door to understand what are the barriers? Why are these women leaving? Try to engage with women of color, non-binary, transgender, all women before there's a problem. Listen to the complaints. Make it easy for a woman to come to you about microaggressions. Believe her, investigate, do trainings, make the culture receptive to all employees, but pay attention to your female employees. You're losing a valuable intellectual resource when you are losing women from your company. You've got to fix the culture, and you can only do that from the inside out.
That is great advice, Nichole. However, we're still not there yet. So, what would you say are the key challenges of implementing a DIB culture in a workplace in the tech industry today?
As women, as women of color, we are forced to understand someone else's perspective, whether it's our partners, our children, or the people we work with. In order to be in the room, we have to understand someone else's perspective, and oftentimes we have to assimilate. What is needed is for the reverse to happen. You have to start understanding that women have a different perspective. You have to dismantle the good old boys club. You have to understand the things that are offensive, the things that are degrading, the things that are belittling in that culture, and you have to start putting in a greater measure of respect across the board. But you have to understand that women are valuable and are needed, and you have to put a culture in place that allows for that. And it's not easy. I get it. It's not easy, but it's the right thing to do. And you have to start understanding that every employee is of value and every employee deserves to be respected, not judged, but respected.
And what do you think is the main reason that we still see few women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders in the tech leadership roles and as startup founders still today?
I think it just goes back to some of the roots of the way in which our society has categorized women, categorized women's intellect, categorized women's abilities. And I think there's a power dynamic at play that says that women are invited into those power roles. And I think it is a mentality that is short-sighted and limited in terms of understanding that the pie is not finite. It is an infinite pie. If we've learned anything, it's an infinite pie. There is space in tech for everybody. There's so much to be discovered and so much to be learned.
And there's another challenge, and that is that the data reveals a concerning trend of low funding rates for startups led by women, with only 1 to 2% of the funding directed towards women in the tech industry. Black and Latina women in particular receive less than 1%. You might not have gone towards going for raising funding yourself yet, but what factors do you believe contributes to this imbalance, and what strategies can be activated to increase funding for women-led startups?
Well, this is a really tough one given some of the recent decisions around venture capital firms that were specifically targeting women of color. It just breaks my heart that legislators have shut that down in the name of what they call inequity. So I think it still goes back to the same factors, of thinking that women are not capable of leading organizations, of leading profitable organizations. And of course, that's just nonsense. I think it also has to do with control and power of the men who are controlling the dollars. I'm hopeful that we will overcome that by banding together and maybe forming our own venture firms that can either crowdsource or find women friendly investors, because it's a travesty that the numbers are so low in those areas. Once again, I think we need to court some friendly feminist men in those areas to help boost those numbers and band together to form organizations and corporations so that we can have a bigger presence. But I think it just goes back to the same old outdated philosophy that women are not adept at tech, that women are not adept at business, and that the power dynamic will shift if you let just a few women in.
Amen to that. That is why I'm doing my podcast, to highlight that so we somehow can crack that. How much do you think the tech industry has changed regarding the IB since you joined?
I think it has changed. Unfortunately, I think the pendulum is coming back the other way, of course, in 2020 with the protests around the George Floyd murder and subsequent racial across the globe, but in the United States, but of course the protests were across the globe. Looked like tech was trying to do a little bit more. Unfortunately, the political winds shifted and they started to shift back. But I think it is a little bit better than when I came up. I spent 14 years in an organization where I was one of like two African Americans in the organization, and then certainly African American women, not in professional roles in the organization. So I see many, many more in tech, but still not anywhere near the numbers that need to be. And I want to have more girls pursue, not only pursue their dream of STEM education and then STEM careers, but to be able to ascend in that. And we talk about with the Light a Hill If Then collection, if you can see it, then you can be it, right? And so we need to continue to showcase, like platforms like your podcast, these women in STEM, to show girls that they can achieve it. We're not saying it's an easy road, but find your role models, find your mentors, and you can get there.
Absolutely. And looking back on your career, what one thing would you have changed in your working environment to break the bias?
I would just like to have been valued. I would have liked to have been valued for what I brought to the table. I would like for my voice to have been as valued as some of my other colleagues. No one should really have to fight to have their voice heard, right? If talent is doing their job, and most times they're doing their job, they're hiring good people. They're hiring people that really want to contribute to the business. And it's just a shame. I've had situations in my career where I've walked into conference rooms and I've been completely ignored by everybody in the room as if I was there to deliver muffins. So just having my voice valued, having my personage valued fully and wholly by the organizations that I worked for would have been fantastic in my career path.
Based on your experience and your foundation and your passion, looking forward, what actions will you take as a leader to reduce bias and improve the IB for the next generations in?
I am someone who prides myself. I try to hire diversity. At one time at National Math and Science Initiative, I had the most diverse. So I want to hear the voices. I want to make sure that I'm looking at candidates who are diverse candidates and hiring those candidates of certainly qualified. We're not speaking about qualifications here because everybody must be qualified, but making sure that I'm hiring and mentoring and encouraging women, binary, LGBTQ, women of color, men of color. I want to make sure that they have a sense of belonging in the organization and certainly within STEM. Of course, I spoke a little bit about the images, the brand images that we show, that everybody's capable. You need to see yourself in a STEM field. You will definitely see that at the National Math and Science Initiative in terms of the materials that we put out. Because if you can see it, you can be it.
So, Nichole, let us move on to another hot topic in business today, which is work-life balance and mental health. You undoubtedly have a busy lifestyle, I can believe. How do you take care of yourself to maintain good mental health?
That is a really great question. And I'm really a proponent of work life balance. One of the things that I do, I find very valuable is making sure that I'm eating a healthy, balanced diet. Try to make sure that I get my fruits and vegetables. I also ensure that I am exercising my body. One of my favorite things to do, both for my body and for my mind, is to take walks. I'm a walker. I participate in 5Ks. So walking is really therapeutic for me. It does help exercise my body and get oxygen into my lungs, but it also helps me to process and think. And if you ever see me walking around my neighborhood, you'll see me talking to myself, but that's me processing, whether it's a work problem or whether it's a problem at home, just trying to make sure that I utilize that time with myself to process. In terms of work-life balance, we have a fabulous PTO policy at the National Math and Science Initiative, so take advantage of those opportunities. And my husband and I have a 15-year-old son, and I'm very interested in having him experience many things about the world as we can. So we do a lot of travel, which gives us downtime and opportunities to have experiences and adventures.
And for our listeners and for me that don't know what is a PTO,
I'm sorry, paid time off or vacation or holiday.
have you ever experienced burnout?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I just experienced burnout. So one of the things that I did the last time I was experiencing burnout was the first thing I did was I talked to my supervisor and I said, I'm experiencing burnout. Here is my list. What can I do? And she was very valuable in helping me to look at my list and help me with prioritization. The second thing that I did was schedule some PTO. I just came off of about 10 days off of work. So recognizing when your mind, body, and emotions are at the maximum is important. You have to pay attention to your body. Certainly you can push yourself to a certain extent, but you have to realize that you're going to hit a wall at some point. You need to back off. And if you need help to back off, don't be afraid to speak up for yourself on that front either.
What is your advice on how companies can create a more mentally healthy workplace in the new now?
I think that you need to be mindful of the workload that your employees are carrying. And one way, of course, you're doing that is checking in with them fairly regularly. Make sure you are helping people to prioritize and make sure that you are giving people time to recharge and reflect and bring new ideas into the organization. In the United States, we oftentimes don't have the generous holiday time that the European countries have, but we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of that. I mean, if you want to look at it in pure business terms, it's good for the business for your people to be fresh, for your people to be refreshed, and to have that balance. People who love their jobs are going to think about their jobs even when they're not at their jobs. You're going to probably have people coming back with bigger, better ideas. I know I do that. In addition to, taking advantage of that time for personal reasons, I still think a little bit about my job and I can come back fresher and I can provide more impact for the organization with that downtime.
So, Nichole, what motivates you every day to get out of bed?
That our NMSI teachers are interacting with and the students all across the United States want to pursue STEM. The students who are building blocks right now, the young students who are building the blocks and thinking one day they can be an engineer, the students who are struggling with math but really want to overcome their anxiety, the students who are gazing up at the stars and thinking one day they want to be like Bernard Harris or Victor Glover or Joan Higginbotham or Mae Jemison and be an astronaut. I get up every day thinking about those students and how our organization can make their teachers more effective, more culturally aware, better content and pedagogy so that they can achieve those dreams. I want them to achieve those dreams. At the end of the day, I want our STEM professionals to be represented across all genders, ethnicities, and races in the same percentages that we are in the population of the United States. If we are 14% African American in the United States, then 14% of our STEM professionals need to be African American. If we are 20% Latino in the United States, then 20% or greater need to be STEM professionals. If women are 50% of the United States, then 50% of women need to be represented as STEM professionals. And that's what gets me up every morning is working to achieve that goal.
Brilliant. Now, let us wrap up with a few words of wisdom and a piece of advice for our listeners. Nichole, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given that has helped you during setbacks in your role and career?
That I have been given is from my mother. And she said, nothing broadens you like travel. Now, she kind of regretted that because then I started traveling a bunch. But broaden your horizons, go out into the world, see different parts of the world, interact with different people, find things in common with them. Don't just sit in your box. Make sure that you get to know a human being who's different than you are. You're going to find some things in common with them. Go out and see different places where people are living. Investigate what the challenges are. Look at the farmer in Kenya and understand what kind of climate challenges there are. Understand that in Dubai, there are space capsules being built. Go out and explore the world, explore the people on the planet, understand the challenges, and then understand how you can lend your voice to the STEM fields to help solve the world's most difficult challenges.
And then, what is the worst advice you ever received in your career, and how did you handle it?
Probably stay in your lane. And I'm sure many women have heard that before. Don't stay in your lane. You don't have a lane. Just do what you want to do. Don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to try something new. Make sure you have your tribe, make sure you have your mentors, and remember that you've been given talents, skills, and abilities that you are supposed to be using for the good of all. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not of value and that your ideas and your thoughts and your abilities are not of value.
And talking about skills, is there something you wish you would have known or skills you wish you had when starting out in the tech industry?
Negotiation. Wish I would have been a little bit better at negotiation, a little bit better at advocating for myself. I wish that I would not have been as afraid to pivot from a company into another company and go out and explore things at the top of my game.
And if you had the ability to go back in time to when you were just at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Make a map of your career. Where do you want to be? Have a vision for your career and don't limit that vision to simply one path. Create different paths. Think about different ways that you would want to ascend to where you want to be. Have a path that goes through for profit. Have a path that goes through nonprofit. Have a path that goes through any other areas that you might be interested in. And don't be afraid to explore and deviate a little from that path, but have a vision, have a roadmap, and make sure you have mentors and sponsors that can give you guidance along that path.
And during our conversation, you've been giving us amazing advice. But again, what advice will you give to young girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders who are trying to break into STEM fields today, especially wanting to become next generation leaders and founders?
Next generation leaders and founders breaking into SIM today. Find yourself role models, find yourself mentors, and once again, map out what you want. Create that map for yourself. Don't limit the paths on that map, but find yourself mentors and leaders who can do that. If you are interested in starting a company at 16, start your company at 16. It's okay. You don't have to wait till you get full formal education to start the things that you want to start. Go ahead and experiment. Experimenting with a lemonade stand and getting somebody to fund your lemonade stand will set you on a path to asking for the next round of funding for your business. So continue to experiment, continue to drive, find those mentors, find those people that you want to emulate, get that advice, and don't give up. Don't let a no stop you. Let a no fuel you to continue going on your path.
Nichole, last but not least, what is next for you in your role and career in tech? What are your career aspirations?
I am aspiring to be in the C suite. So that is my next goal. So either an opportunity to be a chief marketing officer or a CEO. No surprise that that would be with a nonprofit that is STEM oriented. I want to stay with STEM, but I would love one day to head either a marketing organization as a chief marketing officer or to head an organization as a chief executive officer for a STEM based organization that certainly encourages women, girls, and people of color to pursue their dreams within STEM.
Well, Nichole, with your passion, skill, drive, I can see you there in no time. So thank you very much for being guests on the Queens of Tech podcast, sharing your journey will without a doubt inspire change and reshape company culture for the next generation of women, women of color, non-binary and transgender leaders and founders in tech.
Thank you, Jasmine. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you for listening. If you have worked in the tech industry a minimum 3 years and would like to share your journey, please nominate yourself or somebody you know to i@jasminemoradi.com. For more podcast episodes and to learn more about the Queens of Tech initiative and to support us, visit queensof.tech.